Hey everyone, welcome to Wildlife Inspired. I'm your host, Scott Keys. Today, another product review. I've been looking at fluid heads. This is part 3, I think, of this series. And I'm looking at fluid heads between $350 and $500. I got a couple recommendations in this price range and one I just don't like. Find out which one right after this. In the first video, I compared basically just the advantages of a fluid head versus a gimbal. In the second part of this series, I looked at a bunch of different price points from $200 all the way up to $1,000. And just, how much do you need to spend to get a fluid head that is really, really effective? Now, a lot of my slant on this channel is geared at wildlife photography, so I always kind of come back to that theme. However, if you're just looking for gimbals, there should be a lot of information in here, no matter what genre of photography that you're in. In today's video, I'm going to look at 4. 2 I've already reviewed, and I'm going to compare them to the 2 brand new ones that I've been trying. Now, before I get into these 2, I do want to tell you, I always disclose how I get the product. These 2 are on loan from B&H. I rent them for 30 days. I send them back. This one, this is a Sirui. I've reviewed this one before. This is the BCH-20. I've had this on loan for 30 days. I extended it for another 30 because I wanted to see how did it fare against these 2. And the last one I'm going to be looking at today is one that I've already talked about, and this is the Manfrotto. This is probably the most popular fluid head, especially for wildlife photographers, the 502AH. And I own this one, so this one I purchased at a product. The great thing about today's review is nothing is given to me, so I'm going to give you the exact honest opinion. And the fact that I'm going to tell you up front that one of these I really don't like will probably be a good indication that I'll shoot it to you straight today. The 2 videos, the 2 fluid heads we're going to look at today. This one has been by Manfrotto. It's got a pretty long name. It's the MH055M8-Q5. I'm going to call this the Q5 for short today. And on the other side, one that I've really wanted to try, a company I've never used any products from. This is a company called iFootage. This is the Komodo K7, relatively new product for them. They've been increasing their fluid head price point and quality as well. So I was really curious to see how this one stacks up. Now, in terms of the price points today, the Manfrotto, the 502AH, the one I own, not a full review because I've already done it, but ballpark on that is going to be about $175 to $250. That one goes on sale a lot. The next most expensive one I've got today is the iFootage. This is the Komodo K7. This one comes in at $359. Then we're going to go up to the Sirui. That's the one I reviewed before, the BCH-20. That one's at $479. And then finally we top out with the Manfrotto. And this is the Q5. This one is around $489, $490. We'll round it up. By the way, just a couple things. Somebody mentioned before, like, well, why do you put these weird arbitrary price points out there? If it's good, it's good. It doesn't matter. I can't, they make, I have 100, 150 fluid heads. I can't review them all. So I try to take criteria. And in this case, I went up to $500. So I capped out here. Manfrotto makes a whole range of fluid heads. So an entire range. They do a lot of video. So just know that they make a lot more. One of the things about this, and one of the reasons I chose this one, not just the price point, but it's marketed as a fluid photo gimbal or a photo fluid gimbal. And I'm going to explain, I think, what their tactic is with this. And I'm actually going to just start it with this fluid head. So I don't have anything mounted on here. I'm going to show you a few different mounting things. So as a tip, stay tuned, even if you're not interested in necessarily this one. Stay tuned because I got a tip up here on how to change these very quickly. Okay, let's talk about this Q5. I mentioned the price point was right around $500. Just a couple quick specs. It's 3 pounds. It's weighted for 15 pounds in terms of payload. Not a whole lot of information on this one, so I didn't get the exact weight on here. The package weight was 3.4 pounds. I believe this to be right around 3 pounds. I kind of weighed it, but my scales aren't perfect. Ballpark, I don't think we need to be precise. I'm going to call it 3 pounds for the sake of this. Construction on this, and I'll start with a couple of the pros. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. If I don't like a product, I tell you quickly why I don't like it and I try to move on because I'm not going to sit here and spend 15 minutes reviewing a product that I'm not going to recommend at the end. This one is made of magnesium. It is well built, so it's structurally, it feels really, really solid around the head unit. Some of the other pieces didn't feel that way, but this area I really, really liked. The other thing about this, so the other pro about this and the way they market this, it's got 2 modes. It's got a video mode, and I will show you some close-ups on the other side of the screen over there. And when it's in its movie mode, it will lock into this vertical position. And this is one of the only fluid gimbals or fluid heads that allows you to do this. I'm gonna snap this down. It switches over to what's called the photo mode. And with the tension released, I might have to loosen up tension on this. Okay, we're gonna try to pull it down. There we go. I'm gonna pull that down. It's just got a little bit of friction in there. And there's some friction control in here. I'll get to that in a minute, but just know that you can adjust the friction. If I snap it back in, it kind of locks in at this 90-degree position. Very, very unique feature. I will tell you, as a wildlife photographer, you'll see on my other lenses, to get to a 90-degree position, you just loosen up the collar and rotate it. For the majority of lenses, most wildlife lenses allow you to do that collar rotation, not all. If you're a landscape photographer for some reason, you may find this helpful. With wildlife, you're going to have a heavier setup. With landscape, generally a much lighter setup. I will put this out for all of them. While weight is a factor with this, so for some people, I don't want a lot of weight. That's a valid excuse or a valid reason. The heavier the setups are, meaning the heavier gear, the heavier the head, the heavier the legs. You'll even see people hang, kind of like bags off of here to weight it down. For video, you get a much smoother transition. So weight is actually, in some ways, for smoothness, it is an advantage. Also means that everything has to hold it well. If there's any rigidity in the head and the camera is light, it will get really jerky. So when you go to move it, if there's any resistance that's not smooth, any of that you'll feel it in a light setup. I will tell you with this head, I'll show you a couple things. I told you I think the two things I like. The build of the magnesium is nice. This interesting feature, I'm gonna lock it back into this position so I don't have any reason to use it in the 90-degree position. Dealing with that position, just watch this. If I lock this in, I'll put a camera up here in a second, you could see there's just slight movement right there. When my camera's up there, it's exaggerated. When I get to like the levers, they don't feel great. Some of the build is a little weird. I will show you, this comes with a handle. I put it back here, excuse my reach. All right, this little handle, not on here for a couple reasons. One, when I put it on, it became hard to tilt it without hitting my base. By the way, this is a flat-based system, so it's even. There's no ball or half ball leveling base. I have a leveling base on here. We'll go over that in a minute, but I have a leveling base on there. So the arm was very difficult to get on. This is a loaner, I can't break it. I gave up on it. I'm not gonna recommend this to you at the end. Spoiler alert, just not gonna recommend it. Didn't love the way that arm was designed at all. On the panning and tilting, which is kind of the most important part, it's not frictionless. Frictionless meaning I can loosen it up all the way. So there's a friction dial over here, and I'll give you some close-ups. It's weird, I can just unscrew this friction dial forever, like it's just a thread. When I tighten it up, I have to figure out, okay, now it's loose, and you can see it's still got resistance. It's definitely not frictionless. On this tilting head, if I loosen up all the resistance, so I got it all the way off, it's still got resistance. Now I'm gonna go ahead and grab a camera. I'm gonna throw it on here. I wanna demonstrate some of the things I don't love about this. So again, it's not frictionless. Both the pan and tilt, it is a continuous system. I didn't feel great about it. They advertise this as a fluid head. And I'm gonna tell you, while they tell me it's a fluid head, it feels like a friction-based system. One of the things about Manfrotto, parent company, same as Gitzo by the way, is I've reached out to them several times. They've never returned an email. The last email I got from them said, we'll be with you shortly. Got another one said, we'll be with you shortly. That was 5 days ago. So I'm not feeling real good about hearing from them. If I hear about it, I'll put it down in the comments. It'll be about 3 weeks before I publish this video. I'm not feeling real skeptical. All right, let's talk about a couple other reasons I don't like it. So again, not frictionless, always has some resistance. Resistance in the panning area, not too bad. If I go to lock this out, the panning dial is down here, the lockout is down here, but again, it loosens up infinitely. It feels a little plasticky, and I just don't love it. All right, so I'll lock that one out for you just so you see it. On the tilt head, there's this concept of counterbalance. I covered this in the first video. Basically, it's to return this to the original position. This setup is around 10 pounds. If I turn the counterbalance on, so let me get over here. Oh, I've got the counterbalance turned on. There's just an on-off for counterbalance on this. No dials. You can see it doesn't work too well. If I turn it off, there's no counterbalance. This is a 10-pound setup. I don't feel good about the counterbalance on this one. So I can't let go of my lens. It'll just flop. It doesn't matter if it's perfectly balanced or not. Somebody might say, well, it wasn't balanced. Trust me, it's irrelevant. The weight that this would hold, I tested a few lenses on here. 70 to 200 was okay. It held the 70 to 200, but again, no adjustment. So it's either on or off. Once it's on, it only holds a 70 to 200. So while the payload is at 15 pounds, that is not the payload to balance or counterbalance. So another negative is the counterbalance isn't that great. By the way, let me show you this. See, I told you the head doesn't lock out perfectly. So there's always play in this head. I think you're getting the point on this one that I don't love it. So while the build quality is good, it's got a bunch of levels on here. I'll do a quick close-up and just run you around the system so you can see where the levels are placed and the construction. There's two awkward knobs on this side. This big knob, while you'd think it would control friction for the tilt, it doesn't. It's the much smaller knob in here. Didn't love that. It's just, it really wasn't much I love about this one. If you have questions in the comments, I'll be happy to answer them about this. The reviews on this were over 4. As a general rule, I look for reviews that are over 4. I don't bother reviewing product that most people don't like. Some people loved this. Again, for me, wildlife, can't support my lens. It feels a little sticky sometimes. It's smooth, I shouldn't say that, but it's got this extra movement in here. That's, by the way, this is not the tripod at all. It's actually in the head. You'll see it when I put it on the other system. So anyway, not my favorite. I'm going to take this lens off, okay? And I'm gonna show you a couple of things. Before we get to the next line of products, I am gonna show you a few things. One, just as note, I've got that ARCA adapter. So this is a Manfrotto head or Manfrotto clamp and plate system. All of these are gonna be Manfrotto based. For this video, I have my adapter, and my adapter here, I'll just take it off so you can see it. This has a little quick release button here. This is just an adapter, Manfrotto to ARCA plate. I have linked it down in the past. I'll put it down there. This particular one's not very expensive. They do make some very good brands make this. They run anywhere from $12 on the third party end all the way up to about $100 if you want to get a really reputable brand. All right, let me show you one thing real quick. I had somebody point this out in another video, and I thought it was a great deal. I use two tripods. I use one for my photography and one for my videography. And on the videography one, I keep a bowl head, and I just kind of keep the system in place. His suggestion was, hey, you really should talk about the fact that if you've got the right tripod, you can do a much quicker switch and you can get away with one tripod. So with this Robus tripod, both of these are made by Robus. It's one that I like. I'll put a link down below. There's an interchangeable plate up top. So if I look here, and this is my gimbal head, right down here, I've got a plate that comes on and off. Not all tripods do this. The reason some tripods choose not to is one, cost, but two, in theory, you get a more structurally precise, less wiggle when that is one solid piece. So that'd be called a flat base. So this is a flat base. And the other option is this rounded bowl. I'm going to show you how that works because right on here now is a bowl. So I'm going to loosen this bowl up and I'm going to dial it around. Now the quick part of this, the kind of neat little trick is if you've got this system where it can do both, where you can release the flat plate and replace it with a bowl plate. Watch this. I'm going to open it up, lift it up. I could just keep my fluid head on here on the bowl. And when I go to do photography, I'm going to get rid of that one for the rest of this episode. When I go to do my photography, I take my gimbal head, I pop it in, and I just simply tighten it back up. And by doing that, I can replace my gimbal and fluid head. So let's say I'm on location and I've got one tripod. I can bring the fluid head and the bowl head already tied in together, already screwed down, and I can keep my gimbal on here and I can decide on location which one I want. I could throw one in a backpack and just quickly change them out. The other way to change them out is just to unscrew it. And while it sounds pretty simple to do, it's actually kind of tedious, and threading and unthreading all the time doesn't feel great. So I will tell you, if you've got one tripod leg that has the ability to switch from a flat to a bowl, consider that option. If you have both the flat and the bowl, you might be able to set up a fluid and a gimbal and just flip them out real quickly. All right, I'm gonna take this one off real quick. We're gonna get on to the next one. Now in the last video, I covered what I have here on this side, and this is the Sirui BH-20. I'll put the specs up here because I've already reviewed this. I'm not going to go through it in full detail, but I will tell you this was my most recommended fluid head from the last video. It came in under $500, super, super sturdy. It counterbalanced, I showed in that video, all the way up to 25 pounds. That's pretty impressive. So it held a huge payload. Some of the takebacks was that it was heavier. It weighed 7 pounds. Most of these were between like 3 and 5. They do go all the way up, but 7 pounds was a little heavier than some of the other ones. I'll compare this in a minute to the K7. So this Komodo, I want to show you a couple things about this. I'm going to go into a little deep dive into this one, and then I'll show you the comparison here. So this is a flat base system. So on the K7, it runs $359, so about $120 less. It weighs 4 pounds, a little over 4 compared to 7. Payload is at 15 pounds. Had no problems with that, by the way. It has a dial system for both the panning and tilting drag or tension that is continuous. So it's fully adjustable. You can go from its version of 0, which in some models will be frictionless. Now let me show you what that means, because I am going to show you that this is not frictionless, but I want you to understand what frictionless means. When I put this on its lowest setting, okay, I'm going to be careful here. I can actually spin this around. There's no friction or drag on that at all. So when I refer to anything as frictionless, it just means that it has the ability to rotate very, very quickly. This does not, so with no friction, if I spun that around, you would see that it would stop, even with no friction on or no drag. So this is a continuous system, but it does not allow for frictionless rotation. Now I'm going to tell you, some people like that idea of frictionless. Practically, if you can get close to it, that's probably all you need. You really do like a little resistance and you get used to it. So I'm not going to take points off of that. I just do want to point that out. Now I didn't put the lens on here yet because there's something I want to show you on this quick release plate. I'm going to do a close-up of this because it's a little different. All of the other ones will have an adjustment here. So if I loosen this up, and there's a button here, I will slide this in and slide this out. Okay, so that's how I mounted this. I slid it in on a Manfrotto plate, and again, this has the ARCA adapter. This one's different. I can't slide this in. So when I go to try to slide this in, it gets blocked, and that's not a problem. I actually really like this. You're not gonna be able to see this on this angle. I'm gonna show you a close-up. It's got a push-release button on this side. So on this side right here, there's a little button that goes up and down, and not in and out. So most of the other ones go in and out. So we release it by opening it up, and then we place it in, and then we let it go, and then we tighten it on this side by another fairly unique feature, which is a quick lockout. So instead of a screw turn, it quickly locks out. Both made of aluminum. Actually, this whole head appears to be made of solid aluminum with maybe some plastic features on the buttons. To get this in, watch, I don't slide it in. I'm gonna click that release down. I'm gonna place it in. Ooh, if I can, I've got the, there we go, okay. You do have to open it up first. Okay, I released that, and I'll show you on the side what that looks like. There you go. And then I find my balance point, and I lock it in. If this lock is too tight or too loose, there's an Allen head adjustment in there, so you just loosen it up or tighten it up. This one feels pretty good. Now, in this position, you can see it's really loose right now. It is not locked out. And if I'm going to try to balance this, you can see it's a little front heavy. It wants to keep slipping. I'll just put it back and use that quick release. It's a little front heavy still, so I'll just pull it back a little more. I just want to get it close for the sake of this video. So that's pretty close. Really, really, really close. So a little different feature in terms of it drops in and it's got the quick release. For counterbalancing, and you can see right now there's no counterbalancing on this. I have no tension and it will absolutely just flop. It's got 4 stages of counterbalance. So if I go, we'll go to 1. By the way, with counterbalance, sometimes you just need to give it a little bit of a rock so that it'll kick in. Okay, there's 2. Still not ready. There's 3. Still not quite there. This is a heavy setup. This is 15 pounds. And by the way, the taller your lens foot, the harder it is to counterbalance. And that's just, it's just gravity. It's just the center of balance is higher, and the higher you go, the harder it is. I'm gonna go up to 4. So this is the most I got. And again, sometimes I just need to rock it a little bit real quick. Now look what happens. It's counterbalancing. It's actually pulling it back to the middle. It's not allowing it to stay still where it was. So I don't have a continuous counterbalance. I have these 4 clicks. And on this lens, 3 wasn't quite enough, and 4 worked. It won't flop, but it was a little too much to keep. Now I will tell you, on my 10-pound setup, it was a little bit better at 3. 3 was just about right. So it could be a little tricky depending on the weight and where the counterbalance is. You may not get that really great ability to just hold it and leave it. Now I'm going to go over to this side. This has some counterbalance options. This one has 7 counterbalance positions. And with this, when I unlock it, I'll go down to, gosh, I'm only on 2 and it's already counterbalanced. I'll go down to 1. You could see that this position, it kind of holds, but it does a little bit of the same thing. And then when I go to 2, I'm all the way down at 2. You can see it's actually returning it to the middle. So that's that spring-loaded system. It is not always going to be perfect with these counterbalances. If it's continuous, you might be able to dial it in perfectly, but the majority of counterbalances are stepped, meaning you dial it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you pick it. The Sirui has 7, the K7 has 4. Both of these have these rosette-style handles, so you can go on the right or left. I'll show you the handle of the K7. The Sirui comes with 2. The K7 comes with 1. I don't mind this handle. You unlock it. Let's see. Yeah, unlock it. Open it up to your distance, and then you lock it back. Not the sturdiest feeling handle, but I've actually done these blind side to side. Not a huge difference in the 2 handles, okay? So I showed you some of the more unique features. It's got the quick release. It's got the drop in from the top. It's got continuous dials here. I do want to show you on this side, 2 small levers for the panning and tilting adjustment. So this is the tilt lock. One of the things I didn't like about this one is, again, it's an infinite unscrew. So I can just keep unscrewing it. It doesn't just stop. The Sirui stops at the appropriate point. And then to tighten it, it's small, and I have to really ratchet it down. So it does lock out. That's nice. It does lock out the panning pretty well, but I did not like this little panning knob. On this guy, if I want to lock it out, I go up. And again, it locks out, it's a little small, and then I just go down. It's not that infinite spinning. If this was the only dial or lockout, I would say this one's probably okay, would like to be a little bigger. This one feels small, and I just didn't like it. Now that's pretty nitpicky, by the way. All right, that's a little nitpicky, but it wasn't my favorite part about this one. The last couple things I want to talk about, and I do want to get into this just real solid comparison, but was just these knobs for the tension or the drag. So I mentioned it's continuous. Let me just show you. So you notice it's not frictionless, but it's pretty loose. So I don't really have a problem at its lowest setting. It's continuous, which means I can slowly drag it in wherever I want. And as I get it tighter, there's more resistance. This one felt pretty good. At the tightest resistance, I don't think I would want it any tighter. At the lowest, it was about right. The dials themselves don't feel tremendous. So while it has the advantage of being continuous, the dials themselves aren't my favorite. I just wish they felt, it's hard to explain in a video. They're a little tight. This one particularly is a little small. On this side, it's much bigger. It felt better, probably just because of the size. And this one controls the tilt, resistance, or drag. And I can loosen it up, and I can make it more loose, or I can make it more tight. One of the things when we talked about that balancing, and I'll move this down to where it did not balance before, is when there's no resistance on it, it will try to return faster. If I add resistance, there's a good, see that? There's a good chance it will stay better. So just know that. I tend to test that counterbalance without much resistance, but just a little resistance, and it will stay much better than it previously did. So not bad at all. So we've got 2 fluid heads here that I would say I rather liked. Difference in price and a couple fundamental differences, and I'm going to tell you who it's for. In terms of payload and counterbalance weight, the Sirui is the winner, but it might be overkill for most wildlife photographers. If you've got a lens setup under 15 pounds, which is the vast majority of people, you're probably going to be okay with this K7, this Komodo. So I would say, yes, the Sirui has an advantage. It's a little more expensive. It's a little beefier. It's a lot heavier. So there's some of the main differences. It also does support more weight, and it feels just a little more robust. The friction or the drag controls on the Sirui, they're stepped. So if I look in here, right down in here, if you could see it, it's got a dial that dials it in, and these go from 1 down to 4. So it's not continuous. I lock in the one I want. The disadvantage is it's not continuous. So if you like it a little one way or another, you're not going to be able to do that. The advantage is having it numbered lets you know what you like. So for this one, on photography, I like it at 1 on this is the panning drag, and I like it at 1 on the tilting drag. All right, so if I was doing photography, this is what I would do. I would put it on 1. If I was doing videography, I want a little more resistance. I'm going to dial it to 2 and 2 real quickly, and it's going to change that resistance. So mentally, I just know where those numbers are at, and they work for me. So more flexibility on the continuous, maybe better user experience when it's numbered and you just know exactly where it is. So a little bit of a different approach there. This has a 4-step counterbalance. This has a 7-step counterbalance, which is stronger, significantly stronger. Both of them come with levels. This one has an illuminated level on the bottom. So I push a little button, light comes on. It lets me see that even if it's dusk or dark. It's also got another second level up on the top. The mounting plates, I would say pretty similar, a little different technique. I don't have a great desire for either one. So one of the other big differences about this is a flat base system. And this comes as a half ball. So it's built in. You can add a half ball to get more flexibility out of this. So if you want, a lot of photographers might want to go low angle. Keep in mind, this thing sticking out the bottom here, this little knob is going to get in the way. So if you want a flat head, it might allow you to drop that tripod all the way to the ground. So a little more flexibility, but it's not as easy to level out. If you add a leveling base to this, the price point starts to come up to where this one's at. You see what I'm getting at? If you know you need a leveling base, if you just 100%, I'm going to use a leveling base, I want it, that's my thing, I would tell you, personally, I would go with this Sirui if the weight wasn't a problem. That's a big if. If the extra 3 pounds wasn't a problem and you wanted this, this is a really great choice under 500. Now, if you're going to commit to a flat base and you want something a little lighter, this actually becomes a choice. There's no better or worse in this situation. It really is, which one do you like? I will tell you, wholeheartedly, I really liked both of these. I would use either of these on a regular basis. I preferred it to my the cheaper Manfrotto, which I'm going to show you in a minute. I liked both of these over that. So flat-based, $100 less. If I know I want it, great. This got the half ball leveling base, $100, $120 more, a little heavier. If I know I need that, then this becomes a really great choice. The last thing I want to show you is my recommendations in this whole price range. Now you could probably guess that other Manfrotto is not going to be on this recommended list. At price points, I want to recommend a few. This is the one that I own. Again, nothing here given to me. I don't love the lockout, and it does not support much more than 7 or 8 pounds in terms of the counterbalance. That's a big deal to me, by the way. I am not going to have a 15-pound lens flop down and fall on the ground. True story, that happened to me. Using this head, I didn't lock it down. I looked over it, and the whole thing was falling. So the counterbalance to me became a much bigger deal. Flat base, this one goes for between $160 to $240. Check B&H. If you want a basic fluid head that is almost as smooth as these two, take a look at this one. Manfrotto head, it's got an adapter for ARCA if you want. Knobs on the side are plastic, but again, at $200, what do you expect? And just to show that I don't hate Manfrotto, I do recommend this as a great value option. If you want a second head, you want to shoot photo and video, and you just want something that's less expensive but works, take a look at this. Just know that if your payload is heavier, be warned. If your payload is heavier, you may want to look at this Komodo K7 at this price point. I feel like this is priced just right. As a value option, $359 feels exactly where this should be as a great value. So I really, really like this one. A couple negatives on this. Didn't love the smaller knobs here. Didn't love the knobs here. Everything else felt pretty good about this one. I will tell you, I pretty much like everything else about this one. On the Sirui, and again, flat head. So if you don't care about that half ball base, that leveling base, really good option. If you want the heaviest duty in this price point, so you just want something that holds a lot of weight, that counterbalance. I mean, I'm only on 2 out of 7, and this is easily going to counterbalance. So, you know, a lot of counterbalance on this one. I like the levers, nice big levers here on the side. Ergonomics felt really good. I actually like these dials for drag. I like the numbered system for drag. And again, it's got that half ball base. At this price point, if that's what you're looking for, if you have the 479 and you don't mind that extra weight, I can't say that enough because it's almost twice the weight. If you don't mind that extra weight, it's a big deal. So that's the video I've got for you today on Fluids Head. I mentioned 4 in this video. 3 of them I recommended for various reasons, which I covered. 1 I did not. One of the things I like about these videos is the ability to use the comments down below to let others know your experience. There are a lot of people who liked that Q5 Manfrotto. I didn't get it. I didn't recommend it. If you liked it for a compelling reason, feel free to put it down below. If you've had experience with one of these, one that I recommended, and there's something about it that you didn't like, feel free to put it down in the comments. People do skim those comments to look for reviews. A lot of people want to make informed decisions on their purchases, and I hope these reviews help you. I'm going to put affiliate links down below. I'll put all 4 down there. 3 of them, again, I'm going to recommend for all of those different reasons that I suggested earlier. And I hope you like this series. Now, this was a 3-part series originally. It might turn into 4 or 5 because there's a new product coming out, and that company has said once that product is released, they're going to let me get my hands on it. And this one has a really nice price point, and probably for the photographers out there, it's already an ARCA compatible system, which really appealed to me. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that over the next couple weeks. And when I have that review ready, I'll let you know down there. So if you're not following the channel, make sure you're subscribed. Hit the alert bell. That'll allow for notifications. So when I get those new videos out, you'll know about them first. Hopefully you liked this one. And let me know down in the comments what you thought, if you liked the style of the videos, and also if you found it helpful. If you have experience with any of these products, I love for your information and your feedback down below. Really appreciate it. So as always, thanks for tuning into the episode today, and I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.